Now today, oil, copper, precious metals, all rising. Gold rebounding from a 3-week decline. My next guest is bullish on gold. Frank Holmes, Chief Investment Officer, U.S. Global Investors, managing about $3 billion. Frank Holmes, good to have you with us on Bloomberg. How much of the move in commodities, particularly when it comes to oil and gold and copper, how much of that is connected to the report out of China overnight that the economy there, it continues to power ahead?
Well, I think that that's a key factor, and I also think that we're in the summer months and oil demand remains strong. And I think these are real key factors, Pimm. And everyone is so negative on China. And what they're missing is what Eisenhower did in the 50s. He connected 160 million people together with interstate highways. And that consumed 55% of the world's of all commodities to build these interstate highways in the 50s. Today, China is connecting 700 million people on trains that go 240 miles an hour. They're going to connect 250 cities, and they're going to do it over the next 10 years. And next year, they go through what I like to call the tipping point. They're going through the halfway mark. So what you're seeing in China is very significant for the consumption of metals, for the consumption for all commodities. And you're seeing hotelers, Kentucky Fried Chicken, McDonald's are all lobbying to get positioned in these 250 super hubs for connecting all the people throughout China.
All right, but Frank Holmes, having said that, the Chinese government seems to be committed to what they describe as a soft landing. They're concerned about accelerating inflation, so they increase the amount of money that banks have to hold against various loans. In addition, we've had reports overnight of violent demonstrations in many parts of China, some of it linked to the fact that food inflation accelerates.
Food inflation is the biggest challenge. And last year, the workers in China experienced something like over a 20% increase in income. And that immediately starts to show up in food inflation. And the drought has not only exacerbated this whole issue on food inflation. So the government is trying to slow down that part of the economy. But spending $300 billion to connect 700 million people, that's on track. And that's going to create a brand new economy, a very sustainable economy. And then when you look at these other commodities, China is very close to cementing a deal with the Russians and building a pipeline that's going to be $6 billion worth of steel. Today we had analysts talking about which Russian companies to take a look at. They were visiting us from Russia. So I think that there's some huge projects that are out there that are not really getting sort of mainstream. There's a negative sentiment, but these government policies continue to build out.
All right,
just
so
the same
Frank
as slow
Holmes,
down inflation.
how can investors grab some of those billions of dollars? What are the key industries to invest in? Would it be infrastructure, things like coal mining?
I think that met coal is going to remain healthy and strong. I think the drama earlier this year in Japan, the use for coal is going to continue. Steel is going to remain strong. And when they start building those pipelines, watch out for molybdenum, because the last big pipeline expansion, you need molybdenum to stop the corrosiveness for shipping fuel. So I think that many of these commodities are going to rotate. And there's no free lunch at that periodic table. If you turn around and want to have hybrid cars, therefore you need more copper. Copper remains strong. We get any type of an earthquake out of Peru or Chile, automatically copper prices spike. We get
All
a
right,
drought,
well, we're going to continue the conversation
spike.
with Frank Holmes of U.S. Global Investors. Tell me about copper right now, the industrial metal. There were reports overnight that in Chile, there are workers striking for better pay and better conditions. Is the world supplied with enough copper to meet demand?
No, that's a real important issue, Pimm, that any type of supply shortage you see creates a floor or spikes in the commodity, particular copper. So I think it's very significant to hold price levels if there's whole threat of a big economic slowdown, seeing IS numbers slowing down here and in Europe. So I think you're going to be living with higher copper prices.
All right, so higher copper prices. What about gold prices, Frank Holmes? And what's the best way to profit from all this? Invest in an ETF, an exchange-traded fund that bets on the price of a metal, or a mining company?
I personally think what's really undervalued on a relative basis, there are times when bullion is less expensive than gold stocks, and today, looking at all historical metrics, gold stocks are very inexpensive relative to bullion. Now, that means you'll get this mean reversion where you could get, in a rising gold market, a far outer performance in gold stocks.
Why is that? Why are you seeing this divergence, and why would gold stocks, gold companies, be such a good bet?
I think, well, first of all, right in the short term, it's just this sort of deleveraging, de-risking of selling all equities. This is negative sentiment affects all these equities. But bullion as a whole still has really, truly robust is the love trade and the fear trade combining together. Any type of issues out of Europe, when contagion happening with Greece, immediately gold starts firming up. Rising GDP in China, running at 9.5%, the same thing with India. Those two countries have a cultural affinity towards gold for their loved ones. So I believe that those two factors are very important. But right now, when gold turns between now and August, historically, we get this summer correction, then away you go. And these gold stocks have the potential to give you 3-to-1 leverage to price of bullion.
Love trade, fear trade. Frank Holmes, one gold mining name. What stock would it be?
Well, if you're looking for a big blue chip, I think Goldcorp has got its act together. It's very conscientious of protecting the reserves per share, the production per share. I just saw their presentation, and so and they also pay a monthly dividend. They've increased the dividend. And if you went down the food chain,
I would
leave
look
it there.
Frank Holmes, U.S. Global Investors, thanks for taking stock. Good night.